Alright, I wanted to do a video today talking about Brendan Dassey. I haven't been able to do one the last couple of days. I've been real busy putting a new fuel pump in my truck and things like that. So I wanted to try to make one. Also, hopefully this weekend, if not this weekend, maybe next weekend, Paul Capaldi, I believe his name is, said we're going to do a live chat on his channel. So maybe y'all can tune in to that and support the videos and subscribe, etc. But I want to talk about Brendan Dassey. I didn't know that there was a part 2 to his March 1st interrogation. I always thought that when the mom comes in at the end of part 1, I thought that was it. On YouTube, I found part 2, I want to say Saturday, and I watched that entire thing. Overall, I didn't see nothing real damaging in the interview. I still think Brendan Dassey, Stephen Avery's innocent. But I just want to talk about a few of the things that I learned in there in that second part. If y'all are not aware of the second part to that March 1st interview, you can YouTube it. It's on YouTube. But I thought in the second part of that interview that Brendan was more forthcoming with information. In the first half, he had to guess, he had to do a lot of thinking and try to figure out what the cops wanted him to say. But in that second part, now obviously this interrogation is months after Stephen's already been arrested. This stuff has been all over the news. So you have to keep that in mind. So there's some things he could have just guessed on, or some other things he might have heard, or speculation, or whatever. But some of the things I thought was interesting, for instance, just simple stuff, but to me it just blows my mind, which makes me think that it's a false confession even more. For instance, Brendan saying that while the body was just sitting there burning, him and Stephen just went and hung out in the trailer for a little while. I mean, I don't understand how that could even be believable. Like, you have a body laying there on the fire. There's people that could be coming and going right there from that house. Any one of those people can invite themselves from Barb's to walk over. Hey, let's walk over and see what Steve's doing by the big 10-foot tall bonfire and see hands and a stomach and a toe hanging out. You know what I mean? It's absolutely absurd. And the fact that they would have a body on the fire and they're just inside hanging out for a little while around the time that Jody calls. To me, it is insane to even put any kind of belief into that statement. And then another statement he made was Stephen told him where he threw all the bones. And in one of the locations, I think Brendan said that Stephen told him he threw some, I want to say behind his house in the Redont quarry, like behind a slope or something. And to my knowledge, in that specific area, I don't think any bones were found. And to me, a lot of that interview had a reoccurring theme of a lot of the things Brendan Dassey said doesn't match the physical evidence. Now, the state would have you believe that it matches 100%, and that's because they based their entire case and planted the evidence according to Brendan Dassey's false confession. So that would be obvious. So of course they would say that it matches perfectly. Try not to go over items that we've all talked about 1,000 times, like the key and physical evidence like that. The simple example that I brought up about the bones, for instance. Well, Brendan had been watching on the news that there were bones found in the burn pit. There were bones found in the burn barrels. I'm assuming that would have been on the news 3 months down the road. And then, but Brendan saying that Stephen threw bones in another area, and the fact that bones were not found in that area, to me, I mean, that should be a telltale sign of this guy just making stuff up. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Another thing I thought was interesting, the cops kept asking Brendan, so before you went back home, did Stephen tell you anything? Like, all right, keep this between us, or don't say anything, or you better not say anything or I'm going to kill you, or anything like that. And Brendan, they asked him that 5 or 6 times, and Brendan's like, no, he didn't say anything like that at all. I mean, let's say I don't even know how old Stephen Avery was at the time, let's say 38, 39, 40, something, and your 16-year-old nephew comes over and y'all do some crazy stuff like what they're accused of doing, and you're going to tell me that the uncle doesn't even, take some kind of precaution, whether it's threatening his nephew or bribing him, doing something, saying, look, you're guilty in this too, so you better not breathe a word, stuff like that. Just simple little things that I can't find believable in the second part of that confession. Another thing was when Brendan was talking about Stephen Avery shooting her in the garage. This is another thing I didn't. In the second part of the interview, he also draws 3 pictures for Wiegert and Fassbender. In that same interview, he also draws pictures for them, shows supposedly where they were standing in the garage, where she was laying when he shot her, and Brendan claims that Stephen shot her 10 times, and that the entire time all of this is going on, the shooting, the stabbing, that they kept asking Brendan, was Stephen mad or angry acting, or was he, and Brendan saying, no, he was just perfectly normal. That's unbelievable. That somebody could be doing all of these things and they're acting just like I'm sitting here right now talking to y'all, just completely normal. It makes absolutely no sense. It doesn't add up. It defies logic. Indeed, if everything happened like Brendan said it did, then both of them should definitely be locked up for the rest of their lives. They should never get out of prison, because that's severe psychopaths to be able to do stuff like that and just go inside, hang out, and eat some chips and watch some TV while you got a body burning out there on the fire. It's just unbelievable. So, these are a lot of things I learned in that second interview. I can't believe that I didn't already know about, that they had a second part of that interview. But Brendan claims that, all of this took place, and the evidence to me just doesn't match. Okay, I don't want to re-discuss all these things that I've discussed in previous videos. It gets repetitious, but for instance, one of my things is it's really simple, like the car. Okay, Brendan claims he was there when Stephen went under the hood of the car. So if he was there, that means he had to rode with Stephen to where the location where the car was found. Brendan Dassey would have left a fingerprint on that RAV4. Brendan Dassey would have left, fibers, things of that nature. The cops asked him what he was wearing that night. He told them exactly what jacket he was wearing and exactly where it was in his house. So I know the cops went and got that jacket, and to my knowledge, because it definitely would have been brought up in court, to my knowledge, there was not a speck of blood on that jacket that he was wearing when he stabbed this girl and cut her throat. It just doesn't add up. Another thing was, he claimed in the second half of that interview that he cut some of Teresa's hair off in the back. And I do not remember if he claims that he did this in the garage or the house. But if you cut a lock of girl's hair off, let's say you just got a little handful and you cut it off, you are going to find CSI, the crime units, when they come in there, you're gonna find some hair that you dropped, whether it's one strand, whether it's a few strands. Stephen Avery was exonerated from one single hair. So the lack of evidence, the Brendan Dassey's confession does not support the actual evidence. And the last thing I want to hit on, the only thing that did concern me, the only thing that concerns me about this entire case, I believe they're 100% innocent, but the only thing that concerned me with this entire case, and it came at the very end of part 2 of that March 1st interview, they asked Brendan, what do you wish you could have did differently? Or no, I'm sorry, they asked him, why did you do it? And he said, I wanted to know what it felt like. The cops said, you want to know what it felt like? And he said, sex. That's, to me, the only piece that kind of discouraged me, because it's like, okay, well, you could have heard all these other things and you could have guessed at all these other things, but when they ask you the one question that only you can answer, you are the only one that has that answer. To me, I just wish he would have gave a better answer than that. And that's, maybe that was from that book he claimed he read. Maybe he just, by that point, was like, I got, I done learned, I got to tell him something. And maybe that's the best he could come up with. But other than that, I still think they're innocent. That's the only part of this entire case, everything I read, seen, and watched that concerned me. Let me know what you guys think. And like I said, hopefully this weekend. If not, I'm going to have to message him and let him know it'll be the weekend after that. But hopefully this weekend I'm going to be on with Paul. And make sure y'all tune in. Like this video, share, subscribe. Don't take but a second. And let me know what you think in the comment section.